Hey everyone, and welcome back to your Linux and open source news show. And this week is a very weird one. We've got OBS threatening to sue Fedora if they don't remove all the branding associated with OBS from their Fedora Flatpak for this application, which seems to be very bad as a package. We also have GNOME releasing a brand new website and also maybe giving the indication that the foot logo is not long for this world, which I don't think would be a bad thing. And we also have a lot of other stuff related to Linux, open source, privacy, and the open web, including today's sponsor. So this video is sponsored by Proton VPN. You probably know about Proton by now. They're your integrated, all-encrypted suite of services for email, for calendar, for passwords, for contacts, for storage, for photos, but also for your VPN. Of course, you all know what a VPN is by now, and you know that one of its most interesting use cases is to alleviate the problem with geo-blocked content. For example, if you're trying to access the US version of Netflix when you're traveling to France, where I live. Well, with Proton VPN, you don't have to worry about that. You simply select a server in the US and you connect to it. And to Netflix, it will look like you're connecting from the US, so you will be able to access the entire US catalog from traveling. And that's thanks to the 10,000 and more servers in 110 countries that Proton VPN is settled in. All their VPN Plus servers are all optimized for streaming, and they support all the popular streaming services like Netflix, Peacock, HBO Max, Apple TV Plus, Amazon Prime Video, Disney Plus, and a lot more. You can watch everything in 4K without buffering because Proton VPN has a very high-speed server network. So you've got connection speeds of up to 10 gigabits per second, and they've got their own set of VPN accelerator technologies which improve VPN connection stability and increase VPN speeds up to 400%. And Proton VPN is also starting to roll out their streaming profiles feature, which means you can create a profile that connects to a specific server to a specific place in the world. So every time you need to access a specific streaming service and its catalog from a place in the world you like, well, you can just switch to that profile and you get everything configured without having to tweak the application each time. As always, all the links are in the description of the video if you want to check out Proton VPN. Okay, so there's some weird stuff happening around open source right now, with the OBS project threatening legal action against Fedora. The main issue seems to be that Fedora maintains their own Flatpak package in their own Fedora Flatpak remote. It's a distinct remote from FlatHub. It's Fedora's own repository of Flatpak packages, and apparently their OBS package is really poorly done and badly maintained, at least according to OBS. It is also unfortunately served as the default official package for OBS on Fedora. The problem is, people then come to the OBS project and they report issues that are only linked to how bad Fedora's package seems to be. OBS also says that this package should not be presented as the default one because they already spend a lot of time building a Flatpak package that is official and tested, the one that they put on FlatHub. There was no need to, as OBS says, take a Flatpak that was working perfectly fine, break it, and then publish it at a higher priority. The complaint from OBS led to an issue being filed asking that Fedora Flatpaks be demoted in the order of priority inside of Fedora in favor of FlatHub Flatpaks, which is just common sense in 2025. But this did not lead anywhere. Some Fedora contributors even said that instead there should be more testing and more work poured into Fedora Flatpaks, and that open source projects also should not get to dictate how they are packaged and distributed, which is technically true. But then OBS retaliated by sending a formal request to remove all of the OBS branding from the Fedora Flatpak, including their name, their logo, and any other intellectual property, which OBS has the right to do. If Fedora fails to do that, OBS will take legal action against Fedora. Fedora has since apparently placed their OBS package as end of life, meaning chances are it will no longer be maintained. which is really good. I never really subscribed to the duplication of work mentality that surrounds a lot of Linux projects. A lot of the time, there's actual value being provided by duplicating that work, but I never quite understood why Fedora insisted on building alternative Flatpaks when there's already an official one from the app developers themselves that is the reference that is tested by the app's developers. Fedora Flatpaks serve no purpose today in 2025. FlatHub is bigger, better stocked, has official apps. Just use that instead. Now let's talk about GNOME. They just released a brand new website for the entire GNOME project with a few interesting moves. First, their new pitch is an independent computing platform for everyone, which I personally find extremely vague and non-informative for most people. Anyone who ends up on this website without knowing much about Linux will not know what GNOME is. Is it a desktop environment, an operating system, or is it a compute platform in the sense of server workloads or GPU-driven tasks? Not sure. Reading ahead though, it explains the base design of GNOME, with the super key being used to access all the main features. There's an explanation of workspaces, there's a link to the core apps, a link to GNOME Circle, to FlatHub, a prominent block to promote GNOME's excellent developer platform. You also have a link to the latest release notes, there's a bunch of get involved partner links. It's a good website, but there's no GNOME logo anywhere. The foot has completely disappeared from the website, and even the fav icon isn't that foot anymore. It's some kind of exploded fractal geometric shape that doesn't seem to have been used previously in GNOME's communication. Cassidy James Blade from Endless even argued for removing that foot entirely, as it is apparently a pretty bad logo design-wise, because its proportions are really inconsistent, it's hard to crop, it doesn't really have a good ratio when you display it next to other things, and the meaning of that foot was kind of happenstance, because basically the first logo for GNOME was footprints in the sand. Someone cropped that and used it as the logo for the main menu in a very old version of GNOME, and then it sort of stuck around, but it was never really officially the logo. Now, all in all, it is a good looking website. I would personally have pushed for some videos of how the desktop works, so people actually understood what pressing the super key and exploding everything into the activities view was, showcasing the app grid, showcasing the workspaces instead of having just an illustration. Hopefully this is something they want to do but did not have time to do for the actual release. And the other thing is that tagline, an independent computing platform for everyone. It is really vague and technical. You do understand what GNOME is by looking at the rest of the website, but really, KDE has simple by default, powerful when needed, which is a much better tagline than the one GNOME went with. I'm sure there are reasons why they didn't go with a graphical desktop for everyone or your graphical system for everyone. I'm sure some people just ran around those terms, overthought things a lot, but in the end, this tagline is just not good. It's not good branding, in my opinion, at the very least. Now let's move on to KDE. First this week we've got the release of Plasma 6.3. I covered it in its own video on the YouTube channel, coupled with a quick look at the KDE Slimbook, which is sort of an official laptop for the KDE project, or a partnership at the very least with KDE and Slimbook. But the TLDR, if you don't care about a full video, is the following. First, you get much improved fractional scaling in KDE 6.3, less blurriness, better auto detection of the fractional scaling factor that should be used on small screens like 8 or 7 inches with high resolutions, and you'll get also better zoom effect support. You also get better color accuracy with night light, and there's an option to optimize your display for color accuracy at the expense of performance. You also get plenty of notification improvements in 6.3. There will be a notification when the kernel has to kill one of your applications because the kernel ran out of memory. There's also one single grouped notification when you're exiting do not disturb mode instead of having a giant stream of those notifications. Inside of Discover, you'll get a check mark to indicate verified applications for Flatpaks, but also apps coming from the distro's repos. and digital artists have a lot more options to configure their drawing tablet, map their surface to a specific area of the screen, being able to configure the pressure curve or the pressure range of their styluses, better stylus button mapping, and a lot more around all of this. The settings also received their usual changes because every version needs to change the settings, and the screenshot utility is now part of the KDE Plasma desktop as a whole, which makes a lot of sense. So it is a very solid update. If you want to see everything graphically, I have my video on the channel, but if you're a digital artist, it is a must upgrade version. If not, you can wait for your distro to push it. I'm pretty sure Arch already has it in its repos. Other distros should follow suit pretty quickly. It's a solid version. There's nothing you absolutely need in there unless you use a graphic drawing tablet, but it's still a cool one to have. Now it looks like Google's moves on extensions and their support in Chrome and Chromium, well, those moves aren't really well received by a lot of developers. As Chrome moved to Manifest v3, a lot of people, myself included, were very wary that this would mean lower quality extensions, especially when it comes to privacy and content blocking. And this is really proving true right now. For example, AdGuard says that they simply cannot ship their custom filters feature or their quick fixes feature either. Those things, basically custom filters, you can create your own filters to block specific URLs in your content blocker, and the quick fixes was a way for AdGuard to correct certain overly precautious ways of blocking scripts that broke certain websites. Basically, the extension blocked too much stuff, and the quick fixes managed to unblock certain elements. Well, you can't do any of that with Manifest v3 at all. They tried implementing workarounds for this, workarounds that apparently someone at Google told them would work, and the documentation for the API also said it would be allowed. The problem is they were rejected by the Chrome Web Store 5 times by trying to push those modifications, even though they were supposed to be supported. Now, the creator of uBlock Origin also had to release a light version of his extension that doesn't have all the features of the full one. He even told users to move to Firefox if they wanted the full feature set, because it is the only web browser that will support those in the long run. Anything else will depend on the Chrome Web Store, and when that ditches all Manifest v2 extension, they will be forced to ship the newer bad extensions. People working at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the makers of Privacy Badger, also stated that making Manifest v3 extensions is much harder than making Manifest v2 and more confusing, and that Google is in no rush to fix the many issues that exist with this API. For example, there is a problem where you cannot strip Google redirecting URLs of their tracking parameters, because if you do so, the redirection is broken, meaning the user is never sent to the correct website. Google just doesn't want to fix that because obviously they would lose tracking, and so they would lose ways to make money. In the end, everyone that was relatively well informed on the topic knew this. This is a bad move for users of Chrome, for users of Chromium-based browsers, but also for any extension developers. It is the usual, big tech wants to control what you do on your own computer, and they want to limit the ways that you can tweak your experience and modify things. Google is even trying to move extensions to a dedicated menu where you wouldn't even be able to pin them to the actual web browser, which is yet another move to try and make you not use extensions, I guess, because that makes them lose money. Now we have our mandatory AI segment here, and it seems like the advantages that are being pushed by AI enthusiasts are already kind of negated by recent studies and research, which paint a pretty bad picture of the productivity gains of AI, but also of the effect of using AI daily on people who have to use it. First, there's a study made by Microsoft, a big, prominent provider of AI solutions, in association with Carnegie Mellon University, and it points to AI inhibiting critical engagement with work, which you can translate as people don't like their job anymore when they have to use AI. It also potentially leads to diminished skill for problem solving. The study says that people's job became more about ensuring the AI solved a problem correctly instead of actually solving the problem, which led people to feel like their ability to think was not as sharp as before they started using AI. Of course, It is a study that dealt with people telling researchers their feelings, how they felt after using the tool, so it's not exactly empirical numbers, measured productivity or whatever, but it's still indicative, especially from a study paid for by Microsoft. Next, we also have a trial concluding at the US government using Microsoft's Copilot for 14 weeks at the Department of Treasury. They found that the trial participants rated Copilot as less useful as they hoped it would be before starting to use it, and that it wasn't applicable to as many workloads as they wanted. Here, people basically said that Copilot did not help them all that much. Only 39% of people said Copilot helped them in their work, 36% said it made no difference at all, and 25% disagreed with the statement that Copilot made their work easier. It's not a good rating. Now, the study does say that even if Copilot only saves 13 minutes per worker per day for mid-level workers, it will pay for itself, so it's not that difficult to make it worth using, I guess. Now, there was also some research done by the BBC. This research states that 51% of AI answers about the news have a significant problem with the factuality of that answer. 19% of answers introduce actual errors, like in the numbers or dates, so they are not useful at all, and 13% of the sources that AI tends to quote, at least from BBC articles, were altered or simply did not exist at all. Basically, all the AI does is either making up some bullshit numbers or paraphrasing things badly. This study tested 4 publicly available assistants, ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, and Perplexity, and all of them ranked pretty badly in terms of how usable their answers have been. Now, I am sure someone will say that these technologies are young and they will get better, but if that's the case, then it means they are not ready right now, should not be pushed as if they were ready, should not be sold to consumers, and should not be forced onto workers. If they are not ready and they're not providing factual information, they are not a good tool to help decide anything, to decide anything instead of us, or to replace our own line of reasoning and thinking. Now, that study is just about the news, but the picture as a whole is pretty bleak. People don't like using AI, it makes them dumber, and generally it's not as useful as it's sold, and everything it spits out, at least relating to the news, is false. So, yeah, not a good conclusion for these tools. They really need a lot more time in the oven before they are actually worth what investors think they are worth. And to conclude on this episode, we have some news about FEX, the x86 emulator for ARM. It has a brand new release with version 25.02. This new version fixes an issue with Steam support because Steam updated their Chromium sources, and apparently this broke the emulator, so they fixed that now. They also improved just-in-time compilation performance, and it seems to be able to cut the compilation time in half in some cases. At least if you enable the new multi-block feature. It's not enabled by default because it's not fully ready yet, but when it will be, it means that the emulation performance will be much better. They also fixed a problem where Wine would allocate memory over what FEX was already using, so it overwrote things and it created issues. And FEX also optimized for a lot of use cases that use the entire CPU for audio processing, notably in games like Crysis 2, so this should fix a bunch of other emulating problems. It is still a fantastic project. Wine 10 introduced all the little plugs needed to work with an emulator like FEX, meaning that when that ARM transition finally starts to appear and ARM computers start landing in the hands of actual customers, well, Linux will actually be ready to not lose all the gains it made, at least in terms of gaming, but also in terms of general Windows app compatibility. I personally don't run any Windows software apart from games through Proton, but having this emulator means that having to move to a ARM computer would not be a big hassle. I could still keep playing some relatively not too demanding games on that computer and keep playing the harder ones and bigger ones at home on my gaming console that also runs Linux, Nobara. And if you want to build your own gaming console, or if you're looking for x86 powered computers, well, you can head out to our sponsor, Tuxedo Computers. You know about them by now if you've listened to anything I make or watched any of my videos. They have been sponsoring that for the better part of 3 years now. They're all I use in terms of computer. They make laptops and desktops that ship with Linux out of the box with the best Linux support you can find out there. They ship to most countries in the world. They're based in Germany, and I only have their computers at home now. All my stuff is done on one of their laptops. All the channel, all the podcast, everything, editing, recording is done on Linux on one of their laptops. All my gaming is done on a SteamOS console, well, Nobara console that I've built out of their Tuxedo Cube. They're just really good. They've got something for everyone. So as always, the link is in the description. If you need a new computer, you want to run Linux on it, you want to support a company that actively contributes to Linux, you've got the link down there. Anyway, thank you all for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, you know what to do with all the usual YouTube buttons underneath this video. It really helps make the channel grow and actually earn money and survive, which is nice. And also, if you want to support the channel financially, there are plenty of links in the description, and it will give you a bunch of nice perks starting at $1 per month. So thanks for watching or listening if you didn't really watch, and I guess you'll see me in the next video. Bye!